back to Be Determined. This is actually a special update to our pro wrestling show. It's not very often we actually get to comment on things that are recent. It's usually just things that come into our head. So we're actually going to take the time to comment on a few things that were said by a few people in professional wrestling, both of them employed right now by TNA. First being some comments RVD had left on his message board, which seem unbecoming of RVD. So I'm going to read what he posted, and then we will discuss that. I'm writing this blog before going to work. Work for me involves going to Universal Studios for the biggest hardcore pay-per-view in 9 years. That was Hardcore Justice. ECW, ECW, ECW. I love how the circle of life adds depth and validity each time it comes around. All the energy and time you spent enjoying ECW will be justified tonight, as we will see that it meant a whole lot to a lot of people. I expect this to be TNA's highest rated pay-per-view in the history of the company. That's based on everyone in the streets telling me how much they're looking forward to it. Me too. I'd imagine a lot of the old TNA guys are feeling like they're taking a back seat. The thing is, you can't argue with the numbers. Last week, TNA broke all new all-time records for the ratings. TNA needed to change. The six-sided ring and the great technical wrestlers that nobody knew wasn't working. TNA brought in 2 rock stars and look at the company now. Dixie often points out how hiring Jeff Hardy and RVD started a whole new era. Why do some wrestlers not see it? Too young, too green, too selfish to have the correct perspective. Whereas some of the TNA stars are lucky to get recognized walking around the studios, Jeff and myself live like actual celebrities, signing autographs and taking pictures everywhere we go. Without experiencing this, it's probably hard to imagine. In fact, very few wrestlers stick out in people's minds the way that Jeff and I do. We love our fans, and we love their love. TNA is blowing up. Good things will come our way, and I see it happening now. This is a very exciting time. More people watching TNA means more people exposed to other wrestlers on the card too, as long as they're good enough. As long as they're good enough to hang around with the rising standards. It doesn't matter if you preferred the old style of wrestling when only you and your buddies knew about it. We're into making money. Tonight's going to be a huge indicator of what doing the right thing can accomplish. And then he goes on to say he's got to get out of here, meeting Sabu and whatever for breakfast. This doesn't really sound like RVD. At least the RVD that I, thought I knew from watching him. Sure, he was cocky on the screen, but I thought he had at least a good sense about him. I mean, okay, yeah, he did kind of bitch a little bit on the first DCW pay-per-view about not being booked originally. And even when he did get booked, he still bitched anyway. That it wasn't a big thing. In my opinion, he should be happy he had a shot on pay-per-view, but that's a whole different thing altogether. Him and Jeff Hardy are 2 wrestlers that are so huge that nobody else are like. That's news to me. I didn't know in order to be really huge professional wrestlers, you have to jeopardize your career with drugs. Multiple times. Well, Jeff Hardy, but I don't know. That's not good business. Especially if you have a world title and you're gonna get caught.
Yeah, we all know what Rob Van Dam is into. He's not at least not that we know. We don't know about him snorting cocaine and doing all kinds of other really messed up shit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and TNA breaking all-time records. The reason you got such a big response, and I'm sure it would have broke records if you held it in the same
records for TNA.
Yeah, in the same place that you did the poll. But if you're going to take a poll in Philadelphia, asking them about ECW, of course you're going to get a high response. Anybody could see that coming. that. What would be shocking is if you got a huge response across the country. I mean, of course you're going to find demand for it.
In the middle of Zimbabwe, where they've never even heard of ECW, or probably maybe don't know what pro wrestling is. Actually, they take you because they think you're famous Americans.
I mean, like.
My thing about that is, RVD doesn't sound like he's really being cocky. He's not saying these wrestlers aren't good. He's saying they're not known. He's basically criticizing TNA up until that point, because they did nothing to promote their guys.
He said too young, too green.
Well,
green implies that you don't,
But let me see how that's
too young, too green, too selfish to have the correct perspective. To see that him and Jeff Hardy are the second coming of.
But maybe in a way they are being selfish because they want their spotlight. They want their spotlight. They want their spotlight. Well, we're here to give you that, but you gotta get us to the point where we can do that for you first. We have to be where we were when we last wrestled in order to give you guys a push. You have to build us up to this point first before we're any value to you at all. If you bring us in and just have us job, what good are we?
I don't think anybody's saying that they should just job 24/7 and that's it. It says that that's their only use.
But you have to build the person up to the level you want them at so they can build your stars up. It works that's the way it works.
But I don't see them doing the other side of the equation. I don't see them really building up.
I mean, you don't
stars.
bring in a guy like Hulk Hogan to just job. He's got to be a big guy.
He wouldn't, even if you paid him like $300 million to do so. Okay, this is Hogan here.
You make him job to your top guys, maybe, just to prove that they're a little bit better than he is. But let him get a win in there every once in a while against one of those top guys. He's got to get a win in against those top guys, whether he's being a heel, like NWO style, or he's just being the babyface who makes the Hulk Hogan comeback out of nowhere.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, that you got to build up the opposition in order for the guys you want to go over to get over. But at the same time, if you want the audience to be familiar with the guys you want to put over the older guys, you have to book them and push them too and give them a name. But if you're not doing that, then it's only one-sided.
But part of what he's saying is that TNA didn't do that up until that point.
I don't think that's so. You had Samoa Joe, and he was hugely popular, and he was.
And you've got to think in his terms of green. Here you're talking about a guy who's been on the national stage for quite some time, and these are guys who were not really on a national stage for that long, at least television-wise. He's saying they're green, as in they're green when it comes to working on TV. Because they wrestled in the independents and probably on a lot of shows that weren't televised.
Well, that ties in good with our second bit, which is something that Eric Bischoff had posted on his Facebook page. Which I guess in a way you can kind of interpret he was trying to get some free market research. But he asked his fans on Facebook for new names that have drawn money in the last 10 years. And he didn't like the responses he got, so he later posted a comment saying, "Interesting responses. Clearly the majority of people here have no idea what drawing money is. Ring of Honor is not making money on TV, pay-per-view, or arena shows. It's a backyard vanity project for marks. No disrespect to the talent who are working hard, But numbers don't lie. They don't have opinions and they don't have agendas. I guess someone should remind him. This is an additional comment on his comment, which I forgot where it came from. But I guess someone should remind him that some of the best TNA talents came from Ring of Honor, including names like AJ Styles, Jay Lethal, Samoa Joe, and Alex Shelley, who are either getting major pushes now from TNA or have been involved in the company's most well-received bouts. Or that if you remove the recent Brooklyn, New York outdoor event, Ring of Honor, the Backyard Vanity Project, has actually drawn better houses in the New York City market when compared to TNA's own events in the market. Other comments were, this came off like a really misinformed comment on Bischoff's part, and it's a shame people will see this and blame TNA for it. Ring of Honor may not be drawing sixes and selling at arenas like WCW did, but neither is TNA, which has a far more expensive talent roster and a far better television coverage. For a company of its size, Ring of Honor grew every year until the economy fell apart. That's a fact. In the last response, I guess, that I included, mistakenly. Meanwhile, my own response is Bischoff.
This doesn't
I don't
even
even know. What? Does it even make sense? Oh, okay. My own response to Bischoff would be CM Punk, who, what do you know, came from Ring of Honor before WWE signed him, and there's no way you can argue Punk hasn't drawn WWE money. My issue with that is that he's talking about, well, you know what, I'm going to still use the old, the people who 10 years ago were already old, who were pushing. We're going to use them again because they're still the only draw that we have. But if you're not taking your younger talent and creating them to be a draw, then of course they're not going to draw for you because you're not doing anything with them. So what are you going to expect if you have your thumb up your ass and not do anything with them? You got to do something with them. You got to make them the draw that you want them to be. You can't expect them just to all of a sudden happen. That's you got to make a star. A star doesn't just appear by itself.
And once again, another TNA employee's statement comes off making TNA look Bush League.
And winds up insulting the talent that you have in your own company. It's like, do you forget who your peers are? I think that's my biggest issue. They're talking about how we gave these people a chance and they're not working and they're not doing what we expect them to do. But really, what did you do with the chance you gave them? It wasn't very much, and then you're basically spending your time buying, getting contracts, buying people from the bigger company, shooting on the bigger company, and having all them being in your main event. While you have your undercard, just like WCW used to do, filled with the talent.
But talent that never gets pushed and never gets a good angle in, that gets a chance to draw money.
You're blaming them for not being this huge draw, when really it's not like
use them.
It's not like they can come up to you and say, hey, can you put me in this huge storyline with Hulk Hogan and Sting, and we can do this stuff. Everybody would laugh in your face and say, who are you? We're not going to put you there. But because because you haven't made a name for yourself. But if they're not, and I'm repeating myself, but if they're not willing to use you to make a name for you, then they shouldn't expect anything.